All right, let's dive straight in. We're looking at Exodus chapter 8 today. We just saw the Nile turn to blood. Pharaoh still dug in, refusing to let the Israelites go. So this chapter, it really ramps things up. 3 more big challenges coming his way.
That's right. We get the frogs, then the gnats, and then the flies. And we're going to see how Pharaoh deals with this escalating pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll unpack these events, see how the text lays it all out.
And you really notice the rhythm starting here, don't you? It's like each plague follows Pharaoh's refusal. It's not random. It pushes him, tests his power.
Okay, so let's kick off with plague number 2, the frogs. The Lord tells Moses straight up, go to Pharaoh, say, let my people go so they can worship me.
And the consequence for refusal, very specific. Frogs, the whole country plagued with them. The description in the text is just, wow, total inundation.
It really is something. The Nile teeming frogs coming up everywhere, like into the palace, bedrooms, on the beds, inside people's houses, officials' houses.
On the people themselves, even, it says, into ovens and kneading troughs. It paints a picture of absolute, inescapable infestation.
A complete takeover. And Aaron's role here.
He's the one. Stretches out his hand, the staff, over the waters, and boom, frogs cover the land. Just as warned.
But wait, there's that echo from the last plague, right? The magicians.
Exactly. Good point. The text notes they tried their secret arts again, and they did manage to make frogs come up too, so they could replicate it, sort of add to the mess.
But not stop it. Or control where it started.
Nope. They just made more frogs, essentially. Didn't solve the underlying problem.
Sounds just awful. So Pharaoh's reaction this time, he seems to crack a little.
He does. He calls for Moses and Aaron, asks them, pray to get rid of these frogs.
Yeah.
And he actually promises, says he'll let the people go offer sacrifices. Looks like he's giving in.
But Moses' response is quite interesting, isn't it? He doesn't just pray immediately.
No, he puts it back on Pharaoh. You set the time. He suggests tomorrow.
Why does he do that?
He states it explicitly. So that you may know there is no one like the Lord our God. It makes it undeniable that the relief isn't chance, it's a direct answer, showing God's unique power. And Moses adds, the frogs will leave everywhere except the Nile itself.
Okay, so Moses prays.
And the Lord does just what Moses asked. The frogs die. Houses, courtyards, fields, relief.
But the aftermath sounds pretty grim.
Oh, yeah. The text doesn't skip it. They piled the dead frogs into heaps. Heaps. And it says the land reeked. So even when the plague was technically over, the consequence, the stench, was unavoidable.
And then, the moment he gets that relief, what happens?
It's so stark. But when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart. Wouldn't listen, just flipped right back. And the text adds, just as the Lord had said.
That pattern again. Okay, so that leads us straight into the third plague, the gnats. The command changes a bit here, doesn't it? Moses tells Aaron.
Right. Tell Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust of the ground.
A dove becomes.
Gnats. Instantly. All the dust, all through Egypt, turns into gnats. On people, on animals. Total coverage.
Wow. And this is where things really shift with the magicians, isn't it?
Huge shift. Absolutely critical point. They try their secret arts again.
And
they couldn't do it. The text is clear. They could not. Producing gnats from dust. Beyond them.
So, his own experts hit a wall. They can't mimic this one. What did they say? How did they react?
This is fascinating. They go straight to Pharaoh and say, this is the finger of God. They recognize it. This isn't just, advanced magic Moses and Aaron have. This is divine power.
The finger of God. You'd think that would make Pharaoh pause, right? Especially coming from his own guys.
You would think, but no. Pharaoh's heart was hard and he would not listen. Just as the Lord had said, the pattern holds.
Yeah.
Even with that direct testimony.
Incredible stubbornness. Which brings us then to number 4, the flies. The Lord tells Moses, okay, get up early, confront Pharaoh again, same demand, let the people go worship.
And the new threat, swarms of flies, thick swarms, on Pharaoh, his officials, his people, in their houses, the ground itself, just full of them. But there's a twist this time, a really important one.
Ah, the distinction.
Yes, the Lord says, I will deal differently with the land of Goshen where my people live. No swarms of flies there, 0.
And is the reason given?
It is. Very clearly, so that you will know that I, the Lord, am in this land. And he adds, I will make a distinction, some translations say a redemption or deliverance, between my people and your people. This sign happens tomorrow.
So it's not just an attack, it's a sign. A very specific targeted sign.
Precisely. A public demonstration of God's presence and his favor towards Israel right there in Egypt. Pharaoh can't miss it.
And the flies arrive as promised.
Oh, yes. Dense swarms, palace, officials' houses all over Egypt. The land is ruined by them, the text says. And this time, Pharaoh's response, his negotiation tactic, it changes a bit.
How so?
He calls Moses and Aaron in, and he suggests, okay, sacrifice to your God, but do it here, in the land.
Oh. Trying to keep them close. Keep it contained.
Seems like it. Trying to control the terms, maybe minimize the disruption or the statement it makes?
But Moses isn't having it.
No. He explains why not. He says the sacrifices they offer, well, they're detestable to the Egyptians. Doing it there could get them stoned. He insists, we must take a 3-day journey into the desert, just like God commanded.
So Pharaoh tries again, a counteroffer.
Yep. He says, okay, fine, I'll let you go sacrifice in the desert, but you must not go very far. Still trying to put limits on it, isn't he? Keep them on a leash. And then he asks Moses, pray for me.
Interesting. Does Moses agree?
He agrees to pray for the flies to leave tomorrow, but he gives Pharaoh a direct warning. He basically says, make sure you don't act deceitfully again by not letting the people go. He calls him out on the pattern.
Point blank. And the prayer works.
Again, yes. The Lord does what Moses asked. Flies are gone, every last one. Complete relief once more.
And Pharaoh's final reaction in this chapter, after all that.
Predictable, sadly. The last line sums it up. But this time also Pharaoh hardened his heart and would not let the people go.
Okay, let's step back for a second. This chapter, these 3 plagues, we definitely see that cycle you mentioned. Demand, plague hits. Pharaoh suffers, softens, asks for relief, gets it, and bang, heart hardens again.
Right, and notice the escalation we talked about. The magicians, they could kind of mimic the frogs.
Right, maybe making Pharaoh think Moses was just a better magician.
Exactly, but the gnats, total failure, they admit. Finger of God. The source of the power becomes undeniable, even for them.
And that distinction with the flies in Goshen, that feels huge.
Yeah.
It's not just random disaster hitting Egypt anymore. It's specific, targeted. God protecting his people while afflicting the Egyptians. A visible sign for everyone.
Yeah, it really shifts the plagues from just being punishments to being acts of revelation showing who the Lord is and who his people are. And you see Pharaoh constantly trying to wrangle control, don't you? Sacrifice here. Okay, desert, but not too far.
Yeah, he's trying to negotiate with this overwhelming power instead of just yielding to the demand.
And all through it, that refrain, Pharaoh hardened his heart, often linked, as you said, with just as the Lord had said. It's this complex picture of, well, human choice, stubbornness maybe, and divine sovereignty working together.
So as you're listening to this, think about that cycle. The demand, the suffering, the brief relief, the immediate return to resistance. What does that tell us about resistance itself? Especially when facing something that seems, well, increasingly undeniable. How does the text show that tension between Pharaoh's will and this unfolding divine plan?
We've seen the frogs, the gnats, the flies. We've seen Pharaoh get temporary relief only to double down each time.
Yeah, it's quite the sequence.
So here's something to chew on after this deep dive. Imagine living through that, whether you're Egyptian or Israelite. What's the long-term effect of that kind of cycle? Promises made under duress, then immediately broken, all while these massive, clearly targeted events are happening. What does that do to people's sense of trust or hope, or just their understanding of how power works in their world?